Welcome to Undercomplicating Stuff, where we, two psychologists and coaches with over 40 years of combined experience, share our insights to help undercomplicate important topics. A friendly reminder that this video is meant for conversational and entertainment purposes only. Please see the information section of this video for additional resources. Dr. Gedeon, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Julie. I'm Stacey Gedeon. I'm a health psychologist and the founder and CEO of a healthcare consulting and professional coaching business. And how about you, Dr. Radico?
Julie Radico. I am a psychologist, a coach, an author, and a speaker. Our question today is, what does being burned out really mean? And I'm mindful as we have this conversation that we both work with clients who have experienced burnout. We've both worked in the medical fields where burnout is unfortunately rampant at times. I'm also mindful that you've done a lot of speaking on this topic. So, where would you encourage people to start to think about burnout?
I love this question. And unfortunately, it's so prevalent in medical settings, in any really high pressure settings. So it can be in any job. And that's one of the key components of it. It's a workplace situation.
Mm,
So it's not a mental health disorder, it's not diagnosable that way. And it takes place, or it can take place, when there's been chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. And sometimes people can think, well, then it's all on me. It's all on me as the employee. It's something that I need to be responsible for. I need to solve, or there's something wrong with me if I can't manage the stress and everything that's going on. And that is absolutely not true. It's something that, yes, involves you as the employee, and we'll talk about some strategies to help with that, but every bit as much it involves the organization. And organizations that are really devoted to well-being of their employees and are able to prevent or reverse burnout have tremendous gains. They have gains financially because people aren't leaving. They become the employer of choice. And these are all good things in addition to just having a healthy workplace environment that can benefit everybody who's there. So, looking at burnout, there are three different areas that are identified. The first is exhaustion. And that's physical, that's emotional, that's mental exhaustion. And we look at almost a continuum from exhaustion to energy. And
mm,
we can follow along that continuum at different times in our lives. But if you're experiencing that exhaustion repeatedly related to work, that's a sign.
mm,
Another component involves cynicism. If you find that you're feeling callous or cold or indifferent towards people, that is an indicator that you aren't very involved or engaged.
yeah.
And then the third component that's often talked about is efficacy. So if you feel like you're not really being effective at your job, that's another indicator that you could be heading towards burnout. Are these some of
Mm,
the things that you find people have come to you with?
I have definitely seen and talked to and supported individuals who have dealt with everything that you just talked about. And it's really kind of heartbreaking when people get burnt out and they think that like nothing that they do really matters,
Yeah.
or they don't even see why they would put in effort or try. When they, the empathy that they just like genuinely easily had access to before is really hard for them to access when they find themselves getting like frustrated more easily with clients or patients. And there's warning signs that sometimes, again, when you talk about like continuums, like we could just have off days or times where we don't want to go to work or we would just want to rest or whatever it might be. But like there are some signs of like if your procrastination is like really getting extreme,
Mm.
you're calling off more. You are like dreading even walking into where you work, let alone like actually doing work. I'm mindful that you had shared this and I love it. The idea of a signal might be when the Sunday scaries turn into weekday worries, that
Mhm.
that can also be a signal. What else would you add?
Those are great examples, that dread of going into work, not just on a Monday morning, but all week long or every
Mhm.
day that you go. And other signs can be irritability, avoidance, not enjoying things. And again, we're not talking about the level of a mental health diagnosis. We're talking about things like headaches, stomach aches,
Mm,
again, related to chronic workplace stress. To your point, we all have days or even weeks that are really challenging, and those aren't kind of what we're talking about in terms of burnout.
mm,
Some more behavioral signs can be things like maybe engaging in too much alcohol or too many other substances to help cope with the difficulties, or having trouble sleeping, having trouble concentrating. These are all signs that could be pointing to burnout.
mm,
And there are even validated instruments, tools that people can go online and search. There are free versions, there are some for administrators, some for medical people, and that can be really helpful. Just if you want to sort of gauge where you might be in that, if you are uncertain but you're suspecting. And there's even a two-question screener that's been
mm,
shown to highly correlate with the big, what's called the Maslach burnout inventory. Maslach
mm,
and Leiter are the gurus in the burnout research. And one question has to do with, I feel burned out from my work. And you rate it along a Likert scale in terms of how frequently it happens. The other question is, I've become more callous toward people since I took this job. And those two
mm,
questions, depending upon the scoring,
mm,
again, it's a screener, could maybe point you in the direction that this could be burnout and something that I need to be dealing with. Um, so strategies have to be both individual and organizational. There are
mm,
things like giving your employees a voice. We know that that helps offset burnout. Having a sense of fairness, making sure that the employees' values are consistent with the organization's.
mm,
And I know you have background and information about moral injury, and that plays a
mm.
huge component.
Great example of moral injury is thinking back to COVID times.
Mm.
And hospital systems were just like not equipped with the supplies they needed to help all of the people who were coming in. Moral injury in that situation looked like we're gonna, as a society, lean out our windows and our doors every night at a certain time and bang pots and pans to praise the frontline workers. The hospital system is saying, we need you, you're essential, you're heroes, you're amazing, yay. And then you go to do your work and you're wearing a trash bag
Mm.
because there's no protective equipment left for you. Or you're reusing the same, regular surgical mask because you don't have any higher grade masks or you don't have the equipment that you need. Like that's a moral injury. That's a system telling you we value you, but we're not showing it.
Mm.
Similarly, you might in your place of work have times where the system says, we value you, we value what you do, we value how you take care of your clients, your patients, whoever it might be. And then they come up with a policy that makes it incredibly hard for you to do and live by those values. Where, we value you spending time with your clients, and then they're like, we got to see 7 an hour. You're like, how do I do that? And so those incongruencies
Mm.
can really start to chip away from the trust that we have in the systems that we work in. And that creates a moral injury where you might be burnt out because you're repeatedly hitting these walls in your system where it's like, we value you, we value what you do, we want you to live your values and our values and enact them, and we cannot actually help you do that stuff with the supplies we have or the resources we have. Or we're going to tell you two opposite things,
Hmm.
maybe not even intentionally, but that leave you going, what do I do with this information? Like, and those struggles can really add to burnout. One last thing, and then I need to hear your thoughts on this. Surveys. Oh my gosh. Surveys are great. As psychologists, nerds, people who've done research, we see a value in a survey. Surveys are awesome. It can be really detrimental to your teams and the systems that your employees, like if you are surveying and then not doing anything with that data or appearingly not doing anything with that data is what it feels like. If you ask your employees, okay, you're burnout, tell us how we fix it. And what to the employee feels like you've collected a bunch of data and then have done nothing to change the environment, improve the system, help them feel less burned out, then that is like really can be harmful to what you're trying to build up as a team.
Yes, it's a better, research has shown it's better just to not do a survey at all than to do a survey and do nothing with it. I had a coaching client who was in the inner workings of an organization. And when the annual survey came up for the powers that be to review in a meeting, they were sitting there. And of course, there were positives, and then there were also opportunities for improvement, shall we say. And when that was brought up, well, what about these areas? And I think it was probably labeled as complaints or concerns. The CEO's response was, well, we're just going to focus on the positive. And you could sort of feel in the room, there's not a lot of psychological safety, according to this person.
Mhm.
Everybody, you could almost read that they had thought bubbles. What they were thinking, nobody said it at the time, and that's part of a larger issue. But yes, if you're going to do a survey, to try to improve the well-being and the workplace and the demands on time and ability and skill, do something with it that's productive and helpful. To be able to prevent or even recover from burnout, it takes both the organization and the individual. And there are protective factors and things that both can do to prevent it. But if it gets to the point where we need to start to recover from burnout, again, the onus is on both the organization and the individual to make changes so that the workplace well-being is actually part of the QI initiative. We all tend to, when we worked in places, we all had to attend safety meetings every year and all these other things to learn not to poke ourselves with needles or trip over cords. And a lot of organizations don't have well-being of their employees as an identified intentional item for the organization to be working on regularly. In fact, it's oftentimes after there's a bunch of turnover or some other crisis situation that then the organization thinks, okay, well, maybe we need to do something other than the occasional pizza party.
I think it's such an important distinction that there's a lot of contributing factors to burnout and that there are good, healthy things that we can do for ourselves. And then there's really a lot of importance that needs to be placed on advocating for changing systems that are fueling burnout.
Yeah.
And I think the frustrating part is that when you talk to all the people who make up those systems, it's, I found it's rare to find the example CEO that you gave who's like, we're just going to ignore the negative and focus only on the positive. I find that there's a lot of really well-intentioned people who are like, okay, how can we fix this? How can we make this better? And sometimes systems are so complex
Mm.
that something that you're like, well, just do X takes like 90 different steps. And so work that's being done sometimes just takes longer than we want it to when systems are trying to change or improve. The one thing that you have control of for sure is yourself. My encouragement for everybody listening to this is to trust your internal system, to start to like really pay attention to noticing the beginnings of when you're starting to feel those warning signs that Stacey was talking about. You're starting to feel more exhausted. You're starting to feel a little bit more calloused, cynical, detached. You're starting to feel like your work is starting to feel like ineffective or like you're not making a difference or that nothing you do matters. Like really trying to catch that stuff at the beginning of when you're starting to feel that way and taking that as a signal of, oh, I need to reach out for support and help. And that could be a coworker, that could be a friend, family, that could be a coach, that could be a therapist. But recognizing that those warning signs, it's kind of like when's the best time to like change your oil or do maintenance on your car when it's like not falling apart,
Right.
right? So like the severe burnout is like things are falling apart. noticing maybe the check engine light is just flickering. It's starting to go on. And you're like, I should take that as a sign. Let me take care of that. Let me support that. Like the same way that you would take care of your car, like take care of yourself
Mhm.
because you matter and you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else unless you're doing good maintenance for yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. And to return to your point that most organizations do care about their employees. They
Mm.
want them to thrive. They want them to stay. And with everything that they have to manage at different levels and red tape and things, they may not even have the time themselves to put together a program, a well-being initiative, things like that. And there are all sorts of people that can provide assistance to organizations so they don't have to try to recreate the wheel or have absolutely no support in generating an environment that people feel like they can thrive and are being cared for.
If this resonated with you, please share it with somebody that you care about. Also, please like, comment, subscribe, and message us on our social media, our LinkedIn, our YouTube page with questions that you'd like for us to discuss in future episodes.